In the 60s, they took half of it off because they thought, it was unsafe and it could, implode on itself. But, after I was there for a while, I, started digging around with the owners, and he was really reluctant to talk much about it. But, he told me, well, originally it was a brothel at one point upstairs in the 1880s, all the way up to around 1900. And then, my employees would come up, they go downstairs because we had 3 stores, and we used the downstairs as a warehouse. And they would come up and say, well, things were moving, or the light would turn on. The switch, would turn off. They would smell weird smells like, lilac, or hear somebody, calling them. And I, the first couple of times people would come up and tell me that, I thought they were totally crazy, I wasn't used to that type of thing. And this went on for quite a few years, and almost virtually every employee I ever had there would come up, and after a while they say, I'm not going down in that basement unless somebody goes down with me. Well, after a while I started thinking, well, maybe, maybe some of this could be true. But it never happened to me when I went down there. But then one day, Tim, I went down to the basement to get something, and all of a sudden somebody tapped me on my back shoulder to the point where it hurt. And I turned around. I was upset. There was nobody there. And things in that place just kept, escalating more and more and more, to the point after about a year of me encountering strange things, like I'd be in my office downstairs at night because I used to clean sensors in, the digital cameras. That was because I had electronic background and went to, camera repair school, and I knew how to do it. So I'd had to be down there late at night when there was no dust movement to clean these sensors. And on the other side of my office, there was a staircase that went upstairs to, the offices, but originally it was the staircase going up to the hotel, the rooms upstairs. All of a sudden, I would hear a footstep going up the stair. And I think, oh, gee, maybe one of the owners came in. And then I realized that I double locked the doors. There's no way, even with a key, they could get in. But I double checked, and there was nobody there, and I kind of brushed it off. And then, a few nights later, I was down there, and instead of one footstep, I heard a couple people, the creaking and the actual footsteps going up the stairs. And then towards last, when I decided, I'm going to get another job, is I heard multiple people walking up the stairs and heard muffled talking. Now, I'll tell you, that is something when you're not accustomed to it, it scares you.
I think that's one of the reasons that I am a good paranormal investigator. Is that I've been through that also. The initial shock of dealing with activity, in this case in my home. I think people fear what they don't understand, and I certainly did in 2006. I had never dealt with anything paranormal, and here I was at the age of 31, having to face it head on and acknowledge it. And the more research I did into why this could be happening, the less fear I had, the better I understood it, the more comfortable I was around it. So for me, I think it gives me a different view of the paranormal and the folks that contact me. And one of the things that I hear constantly from new clients is they preface everything by, you're going to think I'm crazy. And sometimes just having somebody listen to the issues that you're going through is what they need. And you wouldn't believe how many homes we go into where one, either the husband or the wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, however it may be, one or the other is experiencing the activity, and the other one thinks they're just nuts, and they're getting no support at home. And sometimes you can just see the weight of the world come off their shoulders just by listening to them. So, your first initial experience, you always remember that one, I think, and folks apply for the team. And inevitably, they'll say, I can handle anything, nothing scares me. But the first time you see an apparition, or the first time you were touched or even hit by something that you can't see, it alters the way you think about things, and you don't know how you're going to react. You can never anticipate how you're going to react, and it really takes that first experience to get a true reaction and know if you can deal with it or not.
Well, that's the scary part, because I had one guest on. She's a psychic, and she actually worked with a priest, and they would go out and cleanse people's homes or do what they normally do, I guess. But she had one really bad case. Is they went to a house to cleanse it and do what they do, and then when she left, she felt something. It just didn't feel right, and then she got home. And, it felt like she went to bed and somebody felt like they were scratching her, she said. And this went on day after day, and it was getting bad from being just little scratches to long scratches, where they were bleeding. And her boyfriend at the time thought she was, starting to lose it. And then, I guess, and I've talked to him about it, he swears up and down that they were talking, and all of a sudden on her arm, scratches appeared and she started bleeding. So are you ever scared, though? You could go into somebody's house and they could have, an evil identity or whatever, a spirit there that could follow you home or one of the members home.
That is a concern that I have each and every investigation. But doing what we do, we take that risk. We take it willingly. There are going to be situations that we get into that are not going to be enjoyable at all. And I can think of a few cases where we have not been comfortable. We've not felt very welcome by the spirits. And that's one of those things that, honestly, people that get into this field because they want to get a thrill, they want to have a good time, they want to have fun. It's one of the things that you really need to point out as a seasoned investigator is at any point the spirit can come home with you, no matter how much you protect yourself. We go through protection prayers each and every case. We try to do whatever we can to protect ourselves. As a leader of the team, I assume most of the risk. I want it to be that way. I'm very protective of my team. Our team has a family dynamic. Everybody that's on that team, I care about like a brother or sister. I really do, and I never want to see anything happen to them. My goal each and every case is to take them to the case, bring them home the same way we left. I don't ever want to call a husband, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a wife, and say, we had an accident tonight, something happened to so-and-so. And, I take it seriously. There's been times where things have followed me home. And a lot of the times, they're just curious, thankfully. I have not run into something that I did not think I could handle. But the longer I do this, the more likely that will happen. And that's just something that we accept. And, there's a lot more that goes into this than, hey, it's Friday night, let's go to the cemetery. It's a little bit more serious than that. And you need to know, the risks that are involved. And sometimes you're putting yourself into very dangerous situations.
Oh, I believe that. Now, out of curiosity, you mentioned cemetery. Have you ever done any investigations at cemeteries besides people's homes?
Regrettably, yes. In the beginning, when we first started, we were growing, we were learning. We went to some of the local legends and did investigations, and I won't do them anymore, just because I look at my own situation. My father passed when I was pretty young, and if folks were going out there and trying to talk to my dad and trampling all over his grave, I wouldn't be all that excited about it. So we try to be respectful to their resting place and not do anything to disturb them.
Well, what type of responses? I've talked to some groups that said that they've gone to the cemeteries and got virtually nothing because they figured that the spirits either have moved on or they're some other place. Like, if they died in their house, I would think they would go back to a place where they were comfortable and warm and fuzzy feeling versus laying in the ground in the cemetery. I mean, their spirit. I think the cemetery would be probably the hardest place really to get any activity. Now, I could be totally wrong.
No, I actually think you're right. And that was one of the things that I think I learned along the way is it doesn't necessarily have to be where they passed. That's not where they're going to be. I told my friends before that if I pass and they want to talk to me, they can go to Lambeau Field because that's what makes me happy. So I think it's places that brought you great joy, people that you're concerned about, and I think they spend very little time around their physical body, and I think the only time they really do is when others are there trying to talk to them. But when we did these, I guess I'm doing air quotes now, investigations, we didn't get any results. And, I really don't have an issue with that. So, but I think every team goes through growing pains, and they look back, at least we should, and realize that we've evolved and gotten better at what we do. And you're going to make mistakes. There's going to be things that you look back at and wish you could have changed. And that's one of them. I wish we hadn't done investigations in cemeteries.
Yeah. Now, I was going to ask you, Tim, what are you using for a microphone? Because I know all of a sudden you kind of gone more distorted, and I'm just kind of curious. Are you using a phone or a microphone, or what are you using?
Yeah, I actually I am on my phone. I just came out to check on my dog, so that's why you heard the squeaky toy. But I'll be going back to the office here in a second, so it should go back to normal.
Okay. That is one thing, have you ever done any like prisons or warehouses or hospitals in the past when you first started, doing it to figure out where you wanted to focus at and, being as a ghost hunter or what you do?
I knew pretty early on that I wanted to focus on residential investigations. The more notoriety that we get in the field, or I get, I guess, we do get opportunities. I get to speak at certain events, and we do investigations as part of that. So I've been to Mansfield Reformatory for an investigation. The night we were there were just so many people there, and honestly, it was pretty pointless. You're just running into human being after human being, and not really being able to get anything in the way of audio with it being contaminated. I had the opportunity to do abandoned hotels, old hospitals. We've gotten a chance to do, but the majority of what we do really comes down to residential cases, and that's what gives us a feeling of being rewarded, being able to help the family.
Wow. One thing I did talking to some of the groups, what they have said, you go out in some of the places like the prisons they do, or the old abandoned hospitals or warehouses, they have to pay just to go there and to investigate on the majority of them. And it seemed like at the beginning it wasn't very much, but it seemed as, the ghost hunting fad on TV really started picking up, all of a sudden, it started costing quite a bit of money to go to some of these old hotels and prisons and stuff to be able to, do their investigation. And I didn't realize the cost that could be involved. I'm sure you guys got a big cost involved in it, but they were telling me it was really outrageous.
I actually have never paid to investigate anywhere. One of the things that we had decided as a team early on was we were not going to pay to investigate. We didn't think that that was something that we needed to concern ourselves with. I know the location